What's good, everybody? My name's Jerron Brawley. I'd like to welcome you back to the vlogcast, the biggest come up in America. We're going to use this time to make this video. It's going to be about term versus whole life. I see a lot of people out there doing this. There's a lot of misinformation being thrown out there. I just want to clear some of that up. I want to give you the pros and cons. I also want to give you a few scenarios from a few of my clients. This is before I got them into a contract. They just called me with some of the details about their life. We sit down, we have a conversation, and then I try to put them in the best policy as possible. So without further ado, let's get into it. Term. It provides coverage for a specified amount of time. Typically those time periods, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and 30 years. There are reasons to get in any one of these terms. I'd say another benefit of getting term insurance is it's a lot more bang for your buck than whole life would be. So it's much more affordable. It's a level payment. It will not change. There's no other component. If you pass in the next 30 years, your family gets that $300K. That's pretty much term. One of the things that I advise, Dave Ramsey made this thing popular. You can say he invented it because I never heard of the term by term save the difference before. This is an excellent investment strategy. I'll never, if anyone calls and say, hey man, I want to buy term and save the difference, you will never hear me say that that's a bad idea, especially if you have whole life coverage already in place. This is an excellent idea. Even if you don't have whole life coverage already in place, if you can't afford a whole life, buy term, save the difference, man. Maybe in about 5-10 years, you will be able to afford whole life and we'll be able to get you in one of them contracts. Or maybe you just like it like this and you can go like this forever. So let me give you an example of buy term, save the difference. I know I'm a little shadowy. I'm going to try to move out the way a little bit. For a whole life policy, let's say it'll end up costing you about $250. If you buy term, save the difference, and it costs you $60 for term, that'll leave about $190 for you to invest. You can invest it into, let's say there's a Roth IRA that you have. You want to invest in it. Now, Roths, they do come with a limit of about $6K a year that you can put into that. That's why whole life is also such a good plan. If you're an investor and you want to stash some money for a certain amount of time without any tax implications, that's where whole life kicks in. Otherwise, we're going to take this 190, invest it into some type of growth account, whether it's a money market account, a mutual fund, IRA if you don't have your max on that already. So now that we got our investment strategy out the way, let's get into the cons. The cons pretty much have to do with your age. Natural stuff that happens, okay? But what I mean by natural, I mean, as you age, you're not going to get healthier, all right? Trust me, I tried, all right? I was like, all right, man, you know, I'm 25, but I'm 30, I'm going to be better. You're not. Let's talk about some of the not so good parts of term insurance. Stuff that they don't tell you when you're listening to Dave Ramsey or all these other guys that are against whole life insurance for no reason. I'm sure he's a great guy though. One of those things that they don't tell you about is how costly these things are to renew. You have to think, right now you're about 35 years old, 40 years old. You get into a 30-year contract, in 30 years you're going to be 70 years old. Do you think it's going to cost you more to renew, about the same, or less? Once the term ends, it's going to cost you a lot more. If money was the reason that you didn't get into a whole life contract when you were 30, 40 years old, just imagine how expensive it's going to be 30 years from that time. Are you going to have the same health? There are several factors that will boost the price of your next insurance policy up through the roof. Then you'll have a decision to make. Are you willing to spend that extra money, the money that you weren't willing to spend on a whole life, a permanent contract 30 years ago? Or are you going to go uninsured? That's tough, right? But it's one of the things, I mean, you got to know what you're getting into when you get into it. So yeah, buy term, save the difference. That's all good. It's wonderful. It's a great strategy for now. But what I recommend to my clients is do what you need to do. But as soon as you can get into a whole life contract, get into a whole life contract. So now that we've talked about term, we're going to talk about whole life. We're going to go through the pros, the cons of that, and I'm going to explain to you why I prefer this over term. So the details of a whole life policy, some of the benefits is the fact that you own it. Once you get this contract, you own it for the duration of the contract. As long as you're paying your premium, everything is going to be everything. Another detail of a whole life policy is the fact that you get a cash value component along with your death benefit. What I mean by this is, as you pay your premium, you are building up your cash value account for your policy. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to get rich off of it, but it is going to be enough for you to do what you want to do in the future. So that's the second reason. The third reason is that it has a bunch of riders that come with it. That means it's very flexible. You can create it the way that you want to. Not all riders come with it. There are some options that you'll have to pay for. One of the most popular ones is a children's term rider. We'll get into all these riders in another video. So again, make sure you subscribe, follow me, like my videos. There's a bell somewhere on there. Make sure you click that bell so you'll be updated whenever I put out updates. So you have your riders. It's about 13 different riders. And I'll say the final advantage to a whole life policy is the fact that you have living benefits. When people think of life insurance, they think that they're just paying for their death. That's honestly one of the reasons that I invested in whole life insurance. I don't want to pay all of this money and it all goes to my kids. Trust me, I'm going to teach them financial responsibility. They're going to have a much better financial life than I will. They're not going to have bad credit by the time that they're 18, 19 years old. They're going to be in a much better position at the age of 30 than I was when I was 30. So they're not going to need that much money as far as my life whenever I die. Hopefully, God forbid, and hopefully he'll hold off for another, few decades. Give me 5 decades, I'm good, Jesus. So 10 living benefits. I'll go through these benefits in the next video. Before I do, I just want to give you a few of the cons of life insurance. And one of the primary cons is that it's costly. All right, ain't no secret to it. I ain't gonna sit here and play around with you like I'm gonna say, oh man, you can get a life insurance policy for $15. You can. It's gonna be a very small policy, and you have to be a very young person. So yeah, that's pretty much the only con with whole life. All right, stay tuned for my next video. I'm gonna put out these riders. I'm gonna explain them to you. I'm gonna also explain the 10 living benefits of whole life insurance. And I'll go through some scenarios with y'all, man, like some real conversations that I've had with clients, and just share with y'all some of the results, some of the information that they got, some of the information that I got. Follow me on everything. Subscribe if you already haven't. If you already have, go tell somebody else. Ask them to subscribe. Come on this journey with me. Let's all grow together. All right. Jerron Brawley Insurance Group. B.I.G on everything. Signing off. Peace.